Hey, welcome back to AI Nexus. This is the place where we dig into the real conversations happening at the intersection of AI, enterprise strategy, and the world it's reshaping. I'm your host, Scott Bennett, and today we're tackling a topic that's getting a ton of energy right now, and for very good reason. We're talking about the regulatory and data sovereignty landscape for AI across Southeast Asia. And here's the exciting part: this region is moving faster than almost anywhere else in the world to get this right. Now, I've got two incredible guests today who are right in the thick of it. First, we have Scott Marble, who is the CEO of Nexus Cognitive, and he is in Dallas. And then we have the managing director of Nexus Cognitive in Southeast Asia, Brad Jowers. Scott and Brad, welcome.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much. Honestly, I'm fired up to have this conversation. There's so much good momentum in the region right now.
Absolutely. Same here. The timing is perfect, of course. That's why we're having the podcast. There's a real sense of optimism in Southeast Asia right now because the government and the business are truly stepping up together, actually functionally working together.
All right. Well, let's set the scene. First, Southeast Asia isn't one market. You've got Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, you've got Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, each doing their own thing with AI governance. Walk us through what's happening, if you will.
Bradley, take
Yeah,
it away.
that's actually one of the coolest parts. People sometimes make the mistake of treating Southeast Asia and the ASEAN countries as like one regulatory bloc. But each country really is carving out its own path, and a lot of it is really impressive. Let's take Singapore, for example. It's leading the way. They have a national AI strategy, a model AI governance framework, and all that's aligning beautifully with international standards. They want to be the regional hub, and at this point, they're earning that title. If we look then at, let's say, Malaysia, it's on a fantastic trajectory as well. They've got a strong digital economy push, a solid national AI roadmap, and they're modernizing their Personal Data Protection Act to keep pace with AI. They're striking what I'd say striking a balance between being business friendly and also increasingly thoughtful about data practices. Then there's Indonesia. What a huge opportunity there. They've got 270 million people, a booming digital economy, and they've got a personal data protection law that came into full force in 2024. So yeah, the implementing regulations are still being shaped, but that's actually an opportunity for businesses here to engage early and to help shape best practices. And it's really, I think, an exciting time to be building there.
All
Terrific.
right. So you've got this rich, diverse landscape, some countries blazing trails, others ramping up fast. How does a company think about deploying AI across multiple markets in that kind of environment?
Great question. So the companies are doing this well. They're the ones that think about it from day one. If you build your data architecture from the ground up and being jurisdiction aware when you do that, then you're way ahead of the game. Now that means understanding data residency requirements, cross-border transfer rules, sector-specific regulation for things like financial services, healthcare, energy, even for the public sector. And designing for it up front rather than having to patch it in later, that's the way to do it. And the good news, tools and platforms that do this exist and are getting better every day.
All right. Let's get into the data sovereignty specifically. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean in practice for AI systems?
Great question. That's a big topic. Let me try and distill that down a little bit. At its core, data sovereignty is talking about that a nation or even sometimes a company is saying data generated within our borders or inside our four walls of the company or by our citizens, businesses, etc., is governed by our laws not the laws of whatever cloud vendor you may use happens to be headquartered. So, and that's distinguishable from having data centers domiciled inside the country versus the headquarters of the operation, AWS and whatnot. But it's a completely reasonable and empowering position to take control of their data. What that means for AI, especially because, of course, AI is so data intensive. It's all training on models and seeking data in various different places. But when you're training models on data and running inferences and storing outputs, all of that is data residency, our data residency dimensions. And when you see the regulators are talking about data in country, they're talking about the entire data lifecycle from the time you create it, delete it, store it, process it, everything, which, by the way, includes viewing. So we had a recent client, and this is mainland China, but a lot of the pharma companies that have operations in China have to view what's going on there. Well, that's actually considered an export from China,
Huh.
and you have to go through all that. But the bottom line is it's very comprehensive, and it's that these governments are taking it seriously and joining their businesses in a very thoughtful way.
And this is where things get interesting for the big cloud AI platforms. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So the hyperscalers, the big guys, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, et cetera, have made huge investments in the regional areas with their data centers. Lots of money. That's great to see. But again, that's governed by the sovereignty of those individual countries. Sorry. Smart organizations are also asking the deeper questions, which is where does the model train? Where's that happening? Where's the telemetry flow? Where's the data going back and forth? What are the implications of foreign legal frameworks? These are super sophisticated questions. And the fact that the organizations in the regions are asking them is showing their maturity and their strong attitude toward the process and getting this going.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're seeing such exciting momentum around sovereign AI infrastructure. Countries, large enterprises they're building out infrastructure, they fully control. It's smart, it's forward-thinking risk management, and creating really, I think, some incredible opportunities for companies that can help deliver those solutions.
All right. Let's take this opportunity to bridge over to cybersecurity because data sovereignty and security really do go hand in hand. What are the key things organizations should be focused on when it comes to data security?
Okay, so a few things. The best news is that it's the awareness is really growing fast and the folks are reacting to it. The AI pipeline itself is going to produce all kinds of new considerations that security teams are actively learning to address. Things like data poisoning, where the bad data gets into the training sets, model inversion attacks, and prompt injections are all things that have to be considered. And this is new stuff. They're real challenges, and the cybersecurity community is rising to meet them. New tools, new frameworks, new expertise, all at blinding speed that AI is rolling through the economy like a freight train. The traditional security stack really wasn't built for any of this, and that's not a criticism. It just wasn't built for it. And the reality of how fast the technology is moving, these organizations have recognized that, embraced it, and they're investing in the AI specific security that's setting themselves up really well for a functional, deliberate, well planned, and high impact AI future.
Okay, so in Southeast Asia, I understand it's several countries, but in Southeast Asia, uh, what's the picture look like?
As far as the AI, I mean, it's a mixed picture, of course, as Brad was alluding to. It's not one block, but the trajectory overall is very encouraging. I'd have to say. And Brad, weigh in on here. Keep me honest, but you've really got world class cybersecurity sophistication in places like Singapore, and Singapore has been traditionally kind of the gateway to the West. And then you have your emergency markets, but they're rapidly building capability as well. And the important thing is the direction of travel is consistently upward. Can't pound the table enough on that. The governments across the regions are investing in cyber readiness and growing recognition that AI capability is a strategic asset worth protecting. I mean, it took decades for us to get folks to realize, even here in the U.S., that data is an asset. Well, yes, and AI is built on data, and it's an
Yeah.
asset, and it's strategic, and it's worth protecting. So put the effort in. Anyway, Brad, keep
Completely
it
agree,
honest.
Scott. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And on the regulatory side, there's real progress too. Singapore's mandatory breach notification within 3 days, that's the gold standard. Other markets are developing their own frameworks for companies operating across this region. I think the smart approach is to build to the highest standard and apply it, which honestly is good practice no matter where you are or where you operate. It simplifies things, it strengthens your posture across the board.
All right, so let's bring it home with some practical takeaways. If you're an enterprise deploying AI in Southeast Asia, what's your game plan? What should your game plan be?
I would say for that, I'd highlight three things. So number one, do your jurisdictional mapping before you build anything. Understand where your data lives, where it originates, where it flows, and what are the rules for the different countries that you're operating in. If you design with a compliance baked in from the beginning, then you're going to save yourself a ton of money and time down the road. Number two is engage with the local regulators. I think this is one of the areas where I think it's underappreciated. In a lot of cases, you see that people aren't so willing to reach out to the government or local regulators. But here, most regulatory bodies, they genuinely want to enable AI adoption and help protect the data. They want growth. They want innovation. They want to have the companies proactively engage with them to they'll find that the regulators are very collaborative and supportive. It's a great dynamic when it works, and I think it works more often than people realize. I think lastly, treat AI security as its own discipline. Your cybersecurity team may be talented, but AI introduces new threat models that are going to require very specific training. Things like zero trust architecture, data encryption at rest and in transit. But those are just, as a poker player would say, those are table stakes. To go further, you have to implement model access controls, do adversarial testing on your AI systems, and monitor for anomalous model behavior. That last one is where a real competitive edge comes in.
You know, the monitoring piece is really interesting because AI systems can surprise you even without any adversarial actor involved.
Well, exactly. I mean, just simple stuff like model drift, data distribution shifts, emergent behaviors. That's all governance and security considerations. Much as they are the machine learning and engineering topics aspect of it. People are running around there, building all these agents running around, and they got to be controlled because they're bots and they're agents and all that stuff. But frankly, you got to treat them like human employees. But anyway, the organizations that recognize this and build for it are the ones that are going to create durable, trustworthy AI systems that turn out real impact. And honestly, that's the most exciting part. We're building a new discipline across the board, real time, with all of this.
Well, guys, Scott, Brad, this has been a great conversation. Now, here's what I'm taking away: the regulatory landscape in Southeast Asia is evolving very fast, like AI itself, and that's a sign of a maturing dynamic market. Data sovereignty is being taken very seriously. Cybersecurity awareness is rising, and the organizations that lean in, building jurisdiction aware, security first AI infrastructure today, are going to have a massive structural advantage in the years to come. So, thank you so much for this. This is exactly the kind of energizing, forward looking conversation we built AI Nexus to have. For anyone listening, we drop links to all the relevant regulatory frameworks and resources in the show notes. So until next time, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks,
Brad.
guys.